So we're going to go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So Dina, if you'll do the roll call, please.
Okay. Elizabeth, President DeWinter.
Here.
Trustee Lynn Harris.
Here.
Trustee Diaz-Nash. Trustee Wheeler.
Here.
Trustee Voles.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Lynn. So I just wanted to briefly welcome our two new trustees that we're so happy to have, Shaylona Wheeler and Austin Bowles. Welcome. We're gonna do more formal introductions later in the meeting, but I just wanted to thank you for being here and for joining our board.
Thank you.
So next, we're going to go to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by the council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion without discussion. If discussion is desired, that item may be removed and considered separately. Does anyone want to pull out anything from the consent calendar? Trustee Lynn Harris?
Yes, thank you, Chair DeWinter. I have two quick things. One is on the statistical reports. I'm just wondering, for comparative purposes, if in future reports we could see maybe a comparison to, in this instance, it would have been like the fall of 19 and then the spring of 20, just technically January and February. So there's a direct comparison, because 20 versus 21 doesn't really provide much much context. So that's one thing.
Did you want to pull out any other item?
Well, my other one is actually in the financial reports. I have a question about one line.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and vote on items 1 and 4, the minutes and the gifts list?
Liz, can I just mention, this is on behalf of Lisa, actually. She sent me a message that she wanted a correction on the minutes.
Oh, God. Okay, why don't we just go one item at a time, and and then we can vote. We'll just vote on one item at a time. I think that's probably the best way. Okay, so Dina, why don't you start representing Trustee Nash?
Okay. She wanted just a correction on her under reports and announcements for her attendance at Story Walk. It said in her neighborhood, but it was actually in Central Park.
Oh, okay. Does anyone else have any corrections on the minutes? No. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I motion to approve them. The minutes.
In a second? I'll second. Why don't we do a roll call vote, Dina, for approval of the minutes?
Yes. President DeWinter, what is your vote?
Approve.
Trustee Lynn Harris, what is your vote?
Approve.
Trustee Wheeler, what is your vote?
Here.
Trustee Voles, what is your vote?
Approve.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move to item 2, the statistical reports. And Trustee Lynn Harris presented his question. James, if you want to address that.
Yes, of course. And Rod, first of all, let me apologize, because I remember taking it. I think you mentioned this before, and I think I took a note on it several months ago.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is the supervisor of our technical services, her name is Mary Kwan, and she assembles the statistical information for us. So I'm going to ask her if it's possible to provide a comparison, if I understood you correctly, between FY 18 and 19 to FY 2022. Let me know if I got that right.
It would probably be, well, I mean, it could be that, but I was specifically talking of FY 19-20, but it would really be the fall of 19 and then January, February of 20. Because we
Right.
start. So
Right.
it would technically be FY 20, but only the first 8 months of FY 20.
Okay, well, here's what I'll do. I'll follow up with you with a phone conversation. We can
Okay.
work out the details, and then I'll see what Mary can put together for us.
That'd be great. Thank
All
you.
right. Mhm.
I just wanted to welcome Trustee Diaz-Nash. Thank you. Hopefully your dog's doing okay.
Thank you.
So we already made a note of your comment on the minutes, and we approved the change.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay. Did anyone else have an item for discussion on the statistical reports? Or a question?
I just thought that it was wonderful that the trends were the way they were, that there was more and more in person, and the whole pickups were down because people were coming in.
Thank you.
So can I have a motion then to approve the statistical reports?
I move to approve the statistical reports.
Second.
Great. Let's do a roll call vote.
President DeWinter, what is your vote?
Aye.
Trustee Lynn Harris, what is your vote?
Aye.
Trustee Diaz-Nash, what is your vote?
Aye.
Trustee Wheeler, what is your vote? And Trustee Bowles, what is your vote?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we'll go to item 3, the financial reports. And Trustee Lynn Harris, I think you said you had an item there.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I just don't know, maybe this has been mentioned before. In the reports under each of the 3 months, it's provided account M800, Girls Who Code. There's no figure there. I'm just wondering why. I just don't know. Maybe there's obviously a simple explanation. Just curious.
Okay, I can respond to that. That's one of our programs currently, but there isn't anything that has been deposited into it.
Yeah.
or has been, no expenditures either. So we have it there, but there's just no activity yet.
Okay, I'll have a question about it some other time. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, I would like to comment. I think, a better clarification, well, just to add a little bit to what Marcia said, because she clarified fine. There's no activity now. So it's a long running program and well attended and very successful, but the activity is dormant or slowed down, but it's dormant right now, mainly because of the pandemic and participation levels. I don't know if that answers the question you were going to ask, but we could certainly, we could follow up on it later if that.
No, I guess, yeah, that's fine. City Librarian James. I just thought that I never know how to say. I just figured that that's a wonderful program. I've heard a lot about it, and
Yeah.
I just thought, wow, that'd be great to have revenue in there. So I knew there was some very, very simple explanation. Thank you.
Okay, sure. And you can always call me too.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Can I get a motion to approve the financial reports?
I make a motion to approve the financial reports.
I second it.
Okay, let's vote.
President DeWinter, what is your vote?
Aye.
Trustee Lynn Harris, what is your vote?
Aye.
Trustee Diaz-Nash, what is your vote?
Aye.
Trustee Wheeler, what is your vote? And Trustee Bowles, what is your vote?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 4, the gifts list. And I think we had a question about that as well, but I can't quite recall.
Ask away.
I didn't have one, but did anybody have? No.
Aye.
Do we? Okay, so why don't we go ahead and if I could have a motion, please, to approve the gifts list.
I make a motion to pass the gifts list.
Second.
Okay.
President DeWinter, what is your vote?
Aye.
Trustee Lynn Harris, what is your vote?
Aye.
Trustee Diaz-Nash, what is your vote?
Aye.
Trustee Wheeler, what is your vote? And Trustee Bowles, what is your vote?
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on to public comment. Persons wishing to comment on any item not appearing on the agenda may submit to the recording secretary a request to speak form. State law prevents the board from taking action on any matter not on this agenda. Your comments may be referred to staff for further review. So Dina, are there any members of the public or any?
No,
comments?
no members of the public present.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is old business. We're going to vote today on the public art gift proposal that was presented several months ago. Going back to the August 2021 meeting, community members Jackie and Vince Simonitis presented their very generous proposal for adding a library-themed bronze sculpture of a grandfather and a granddaughter on a bench reading the book. They wanted to add it to the grounds in front of the main library. And we formed a committee as per our policies to review the proposal. And the committee shared its findings and recommendations with the rest of the board at our September 2021 meeting. So we're going to vote on the proposal today. And hopefully our new trustees had time to read the packet and the policies, but just to summarize, the committee considered the artwork in terms of the library's artwork donation policy and guidelines and the City of San Mateo Civic Arts Committee guidelines for art in public places, since the artwork was going to be just outside of the library, not inside. The committee found that the proposed artwork does not meet either set of guidelines, unfortunately, as it's not original. It could be duplicated given the process that the manufacturer uses. And it does not adequately reflect the variety of patrons that visit the library. I see Trustee Diaz-Nash has her hand up, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. I think you're muted, Lisa.
Sorry about that. I don't know when I should make comment in the midst of all this or before or after the vote. So I'm just looking for some guidance as to when I should.
Oh,
make
okay. Well, that was my summary. I guess first maybe just to see if there's any questions from the new trustees at this point. So yeah, I think you should feel free to comment, Lisa.
Okay, thank you, President DeWinter. I think a couple of things. Number one, I think the subcommittee did a very thorough job of reviewing the artwork, reviewing the various policies, and coming up with a recommendation based on the existing policies. What my concern is that those policies perhaps are not adequate for or comprehensive enough for what we need to be doing, which is not at all a criticism of the subcommittee. The subcommittee did exactly what it was supposed to do. But as you may recall from our last discussion, my concern, while I agreed with the comments about the fact that the art was smaller than the space, no question. But my questions were, number one, in saying that the art has to be original, will we ever be able to put anything there that is not an extremely expensive piece of art? And is that anything then something that the city itself could do? So the city, commissioned a marvelous piece of art as you enter San Mateo, but that was a very expensive piece. I doubt that would happen right in front of the library. I could be wrong, but how do we square that if we ever want to accept an individual contribution? So I would question what original is. And then number two, while I very much support the focus on diversity and getting art that reflects our our common community, the one piece that was left out of that definition was age. And that is something that piece of art did very much talk about: old age, young age together. And that's not in our policy. So once again, you couldn't evaluate it based on that. But my vote will be impacted by the fact that I think that's an important thing that should be included. So I guess my recommendation is that going forward, that number one, perhaps we take a look at our policy to see if we want to make any changes based on this experience, which I think was a very good one. And number two, how does our policy integrate with what the city's policy is?
Mhm.
So those are all questions that I would love to take up or have someone take up in future. But once again, I think the committee did a very good job.
Thank you for that. I also think, looking back, because this was kind of an unusual request and hadn't come up maybe ever since the main library has been built. But I think that in the future, now we know one of the most important things is to provide people who are interested in donating art with all the policies in advance of their presentation, because I think they were caught off guard because they'd already kind of picked out their piece, and had they known some of the criteria, that might have guided their decision a little more, I think. So that's also sort of a lesson learned, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a great comment, a great suggestion.
Like, were there any other questions or comments? Okay, so I think at this point we should go ahead and vote. And so it's hard to work. I'd like to make a motion to vote on, I'm going to phrase it this way, so pay attention. So we're voting on approval of the proposed art. So if you say aye, you're saying you approve of putting the art in front of the library. If you say nay, you're following the recommendation to not place the art or approve the proposal. Does that make sense? Trustee Diaz-Nash? You're muted.
I apologize. I'm in a public place. I apologize. How does one vote if one, I'm really not a yay or a nay exactly. If my objections are based on the policy and that my recommendation might be to go back for further study, I guess I don't know how that would.
Okay. I mean, my opinion is that we've kind of dragged this along for so many months that I feel like I don't want to do more study because I feel like it's not fair to the Simonitises. I mean, they can always come back with another proposal, I feel like. So I'm happy to discuss it, but I feel like they know we're voting today, and I feel like we should vote. But they're always welcome to submit another proposal, and maybe policies will change and then they could submit the same proposal. I mean, but I feel like we're just dragging this along, that it's not fair to them is how I feel. But Trustee Lynn Harris?
Pardon me, did you? Oh, thank you. Two quick things. Number one, I do agree with Commissioner Nash in terms of the originality issue. And at some point, because I think that's just kind of an odd stipulation to make certain everything is original because of the definition of the word original. The other question I had was, I believe, President Dwinter, that we had, or in the recommendations, there had been the possibility of moving the smaller piece in the back to the front. And I know that's not what we're voting on. I'm just wondering about, are we voting on specifically just the piece they proposed? And we're not really discussing at this time the second recommendation, which is moving the other piece to the front, correct?
Correct,
All right.
yeah. Because that one, we're not even sure can be moved. So I
Yeah.
think there would have to be some study done on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I actually have a question. So with the two new members here, I'm assuming they will abstain because they were not here or may not be knowledgeable about this whole issue?
So thank you for that. I've
You're
reached out to both in advance to request that they read all the literature. Those,
Oh, okay.
yeah, but if neither of you feel comfortable or either one do not feel comfortable voting, of course you can abstain. But there's really no other information. It's really just the recommendation, which is based on those policies.
Okay. Fair enough.
But obviously we're happy to discuss it more. And if you would like to vote, but you don't feel like you have enough information, we can talk more about it.
No,
Sounds
I
like they're
feel,
okay.
I know.
yeah, I feel it was a 40 page packet. I feel like it had a lot. I do like Trustees Dia Nash's suggestion of revisiting the policies. I mean, I think if we say those are the policies and we should, those are the kind of criteria, it's easy to vote on that, but it does seem like a good suggestion to revisit those.
Right. I feel like maybe we should take a vote on whether to vote today. Is anyone opposed to voting today?
No.
No, okay. So the motion is we are voting to approve putting the proposed or agreeing to the proposed artwork that would be purchased and put in front of the library. So if you say aye, that means you approve it, which would be against the recommendation from the committee. Does that make sense? Okay. So I think we're ready to vote then, Dina.
Okay. President DeWinter, what is your vote?
No.
Trustee Lynn Harris, what is your vote?
No.
Trustee Diaz-Nash, what is your vote?
Aye, because I believe the basis of the committee recommendation had some faults to it.
I didn't quite hear that, Lisa. You said, yeah.
I said aye,
Okay.
because I believe the foundation on which the committee made its recommendation had some gaps. Thank you.
Trustee Wheeler, what is your vote?
Nay.
And Trustee Bowles, what is your vote?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, so the noes have it. So James, I'm happy to go back to the Simonitis. Maybe we jointly go back and let them know.
Yes, I'm fine with that. And just let me know what you all need and when you're ready to review the policy at some point in the future.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mhm.
And we want to thank the Simonitises again for their very, very generous offer. And hopefully we can work something out together in the future. Okay, so we're moving on to item 6, which is a review of the library board charter, which is perfect timing with our 2 new trustees. So we're fortunate to have Assistant City Attorney Bahara Abdullahi. Did I say that right? And she's here to give us a historical and legal overview of our charter. So I will turn it over to Assistant City Attorney Abdullahi.
Thank you so much. Right, so I'm here to just briefly explain the charter, and then I'm happy to take questions. Whatever I can answer here, I will. And if there are things I need to look into, I can always take down your questions and come back at another time. So the California Constitution authorizes voters to adopt a city charter for their municipality. The San Mateo Charter was adopted by the voters in 1922, and within that, there were several different boards and commissions established, one of them being the library board. Once adopted, a charter is like a city's constitution, and any amendments or changes to the charter have to go back to the voters. And that can be initiated either by the council or by voter initiative to put a charter amendment on the ballot. In our charter sections 6.01 to 6.03 refer to the library board's roles and assignments. 6.01H states generally that the role of the library board is as an advisory citizens arm, like advisory capacity to the city librarian, the city manager, and the city council. And it also sets forth their scope of advice and scope of duties. Generally, all city boards and commissions in the city are meant to and have been used historically to review and make recommendations to the council and the executive team. There are only like a few very specific instances in which a board and commission can take any kind of final action on an item, but generally speaking, the vast majority of their role is a citizens branch to advise and guide the legislative body, the elected officials. So I don't know if you guys have any specific questions about the charter, but that is in a nutshell what the charter is. There are also a few sections in our municipal code that refer to the library board's duties, and that's in section 2.15 of the municipal code. So I mean, at this point, I'm happy to take any questions you guys might have.
Trustee Diaz-Nash, I think you were first.
Thank you very much, President DeWinter, and welcome to our session tonight. We appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
I wonder if you've had a chance, and my guess is you haven't, to take a look at a grid that was discussed by the library board a couple of meetings ago when we first started talking about the role and responsibility of the library board versus the foundation versus the staff. And I think some of the questions we had were specifically related to that, President DeWinter, in terms of when should the board act, when is the responsibility with head librarian more, et cetera, and so on. So,
well, just generally, I can answer that any kind of decision-making authority would lay either with the executive, so the city librarian or manager, and any kind of legislative action, the final decision would be made at the city council level. So I'm not sure what was in the grid, but typically it would be something being brought to the library board, your feedback and input taken, and then decision-making authority with the executive and legislative branch. Similar to the other commissions we have, like Parks and Rec or Public Works, the vast majority of the things they do are in an advisory capacity.
while you talk, let me just look and see if I can find that grid and see if there's any specific there, but I know that
Sure.
motivated this discussion.
I do think part of why this came up was we were developing policies around COVID and mask wearing and things that we never had to deal with before. So usually we're just helping to update policies or approve updates on policies, but we were creating with James and the staff new policies. So I think that's part of what why this came up as an issue, as I recall.
May I chime in?
Of
And
course.
Rod, I see your hand there. I'm just want to elaborate a little bit on what Liz said. So Bahar, I think there, early in the COVID process, we were like everyone else, sort of scrambling and confused. And then there was an emergency order, I believe, by the county health officer, and that granted Drew, the city manager, emergency powers. And one of the things that happened was, we were trying to establish, for curbside pickup, how far should people stand apart? What should we pause fines, things of that nature? And early on, some of those decisions had to be made very, sort of on the spot. And one of our trustees, Dr. Lester Chin, who's no longer with us, he was trying to get clarity, because these are things that normally if we make a change, we would, obviously the trustees would have to approve and sign off because it would be a policy change. One of the things that I didn't understand at that time was that because the city had been granted, because the city manager's office had been granted emergency powers, that these were things that that could be decided by the city manager's office with recommendations from me. They were not permanent policy changes. They were basically in effect as long as there was a state of emergency. And I didn't understand that, so I didn't explain that very well to the board. But then I think it also led to some confusion and some concern from Trustee Chin and perhaps others about what policies could be changed and how and under what circumstances. So I hope that sort of elaborates or at least gives some context.
Trustee Lynn Harris.
Yes, thank you very much, President DeWinter, and thank you for the overview there. My question is that my understanding has always been, and wonderfully, that we are serving an advisory capacity, which is great, and that's was my understanding coming on and such. I guess I'm just not interpreting correctly. Just right under level A, letter A. I didn't know that we could, just read it, exercise sole responsibility for establishing, et cetera, policy in any event. So I'm a little, I wasn't aware of that, and the little qualifier in there about from time to time kind of just adds for me a little bit of a layer of, the unknown. So can you touch on that possibly?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely the way that the language was drafted seems contradictory in parts, and it is 100 years old. So it's a lot of times older drafting isn't as clear, and people weren't analyzing it on the internet. On the internet, and things weren't as consistent. The subsection H, 6.01H, then goes on to state that the board's role is in an advisory capacity, which is inconsistent. And I think there are different ways to interpret laws. You look at the plain language, like you just stated, it says that you have that authority. But then when you look at the section as a whole, it's clear that ultimately the final section states that the board's capacity is advisory, and then also looking at the 100 years of practice for not just the library board, but the boards and commissions in general, and their role being as a citizens advisory capacity to the executive and the legislative branch. You kind of have to look at in order to interpret, you look at the whole package. Ideally, all those things line up, right? The plain language and the entire section and the practice all are the same thing, but sometimes it's not like that. So you kind of have to look at the most common sense interpretation of it.
I think Bahar,
I
the
wish there
way,
was a better answer, but
No,
no,
that's
I
fine.
think the way you just explained it was actually really helpful because letter E, approve or disapprove the appointment of the librarian, that actually, I think was also one of the things that awkwardly came up. I don't know how many years ago now, James, but
3.
3. Because some on the board at the time felt like we should have basically the right to approve or disapprove whoever was selected, which of course came back to us as, no, we don't have that right. But I think by pointing to H as sort of really the culmination, it's really what we should be looking at. Because you could dissect every one of these and say, well, we have more power than,
then,
you know,
yeah,
we
then the
thought we
city
did.
council, who doesn't have the authority to approve or disapprove of this appointment of the city librarian. So yeah, you have to kind of look at what makes sense as a whole when reading it.
And to change it, it's ironic that it's exactly 100 years old,
Mhm.
but to change it would be a lot of effort and money. So
Well, you'd have to get it back on the ballot. in
yeah, so
two
I
ways,
think,
said, yeah, so either the council would have to initiate it, or yeah, it would have to be a voter initiated change.
right. So
Yes.
James.
Yeah, I just want to add, and this is in because I, at the end of the day, I'm going to do my job according to the will of the people of San Mateo. And so whatever you all choose to do or however you choose to approach it, I support. I just want to provide what I think is some clarification, and this is just my best sort of going back in time and trying to understand how some of these rules may have been written and why they may be confusing. In 1922, I'm going to imagine that we probably had a small one-room library. And it could be the sort of thing where community member, maybe a collection of, maybe a few hundred books at most. And it could be the sort of thing where community members could have a fairly, or volunteers or the board could have a fairly strong grasp on what books are in the collection and how many, and maybe even, a tighter, more cohesive idea of what sort of books are respectable. Now we have a collection of 250,000 books, CDs, DVDs, and if you count for the electric resources, we have over 1 million items in our collection. And so there's no practical way that I could see how in modern times, how someone who is a concerned community member could really make an informed decision on the process of like what books to order, how to order them, the whole process when we're dealing with we literally have different divisions, different specialists. So my guess is that provision was written in the context of a much, much smaller library, much, much smaller collection, much, much smaller population. And that time to time maybe makes me think that there were some situations under which they thought it might be helpful or necessary. But of course, I don't know. That's just my guess.
Makes sense. Are there any other questions? Okay, well, thank you, Bahar.
It was my pleasure. And if any other questions come up, you can feel free to let James know, and I'll do my best to address them.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you,
I'm
Bahar.
gonna log off
Bye.
if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye. Great, okay, so moving on to new business. Item 7, we're going to introduce now our new library board trustees. So maybe each of you can just say a few words and most importantly, why you were interested in joining our board. And of course, we welcome you both. We're very happy to have you both with us. So why don't we start with trustee Wheeler?
Good evening. So I'm just excited to be here this evening, and I'm in education. I've been a second grade teacher at the Carey School for about 5 years now, and I'm just excited to be on the board because I believe, the library is a pillar of the community, and I definitely just want to help out in any way I can.
Great, thank you. And Trustee Bowles?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I also work in education. I work for a K through 12 school called Avenues. And in my own life, libraries have just been a great way to nurture my own curiosity and learning. And I love how they provide opportunities that aren't often otherwise available in schools for people who are sufficiently motivated and interested and curious. And so it's really grateful to have the opportunity to join the library and be a part of that.
Great, thank you. And James, I see you have your hand up.
I think that was leftover from the last time,
Oh.
but I will just say this. I had the opportunity to meet with both Shaylana and Austin individually before, and that's something I'm going to do from here on out whenever we get new board members, because it was wonderful just to sit and talk with them.
Mhm.
And to really understand what brings them here, and to really understand like their commitment and their passion to the library. And someone like Shaylana, who grew up lifelong San Mateo resident. It was also great. It was also great to introduce them to all of the staff. And I want to write a little story about them in our monthly newsletter as well.
That's fantastic. Great. And Trustee Diaz-Nash?
I would love to second everyone's welcome to the both of you. You both went out of your way to apply and share your interests, and I think you're going to add such great voices to the board. And I'd actually suggested an idea which happened on another board I was on, which I thought was great, was to have a board buddy. Because, a lot of what we were talking about tonight got pretty sort of in the weeds, and maybe wasn't what you thought you'd be talking about when you joined the board all the time. And maybe we know and maybe we don't, but just to have someone you can reach out to, and you don't have to feel like, oh my God, I'm asking another crazy question, or just to say, hey, here's something we talked about 3 years ago that maybe you aren't aware of that you would be interested in, or just, I found it very helpful in me on another board, and we're still pretty small and informal, but it might be an idea to think about. But welcome. And when we do get back together in person, we enjoy sharing good chocolate chip cookies at the end of our meeting.
Thank you. Yeah, you should both, of course, feel free to reach out to any of the three of us about anything that you heard today, or any questions. There's a lot of information that we include in these packets that wasn't always the case with a lot of statistics, and it's kind of evolved over the years. So I'm now in my 7th year on the board, and I've been a San Mateo resident for 10 years now, which I can't believe, but anyway, it's a very welcoming group, and this is just it's sort of a fun board to be on, I think. And under James's leadership, the library is just one of the best things I think about San Mateo, the main and the 2 branches, actually. So anyway, so welcome. And it's kind of, so James, your hand is that still up from before, or do you have something new you want to add? Okay, I'm trying to pay attention. Okay, so thanks again. I'm going to go on to item 8 in new business, which is appointing the new library board vice president. So we are a board that rotates, which I think they all do. Based on rotation, Trustee Diaz-Nash was president before my current appointment. So it sort of makes sense to rotate Trustee Lynn Harris into the vice president position. And then I think we'll figure out next year, the next steps, or I guess this term, Rod, would be through July. And then you rotate into the president position.
You told me I was being asked to be in this position based purely on merit, not rotation. What are you talking about, Liz?
Let's say
President DeWinter.
Well, I don't believe I'm here based on merit.
Oh, you certainly are.
But
No,
I do my best. Yeah.
that's great.
Okay.
That's
And
great.
then-
And obviously I want to just welcome each of the two of you as well. Looking forward to your insights and expertise. Obviously, given your backgrounds, there's certainly an abundance of it. So thanks very much for your impetus and coming aboard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. And my understanding is we do not need to vote on this appointment. So, so you're in, Rod. Okay.
Congratulations, Vice President.
Thank you very, very much, Commissioner Nash.
Great. Okay, so we're moving right along to item 9, which is the fiscal year 2022-23 fee schedule. And Senior Management Analyst Marcia Mendonca is here to present the fee schedule. So I'll turn it over to you, Marcia.
Thank you. So the fee schedule is based on the CPI, the Consumer Price Index for the previous year. So how the fees are calculated, we just take the previous year's fees and we apply the new CPI. And at the library, we will also round it up to, or actually round it to the nearest $5. So I have presented, it's in your packet. I'm not sure if you would like to see it again. I think I have it ready to go. Or
Yeah,
if you-
and I think that'd be helpful to share.
Okay. One moment. I'm pulling it up. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So the first few items are fines and fees. These items actually do not change. So these are the same that you've seen last year. So they're based on materials that are not returned or copies that are made at the library.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I actually already have a question for the overdue materials, which James is probably anticipating. So the city council voted to approve doing away with the overdue fees or fines, I guess. And I'm just curious about the timetable for that. I think with the pandemic, we haven't been charging. So is that it for fines or?
Yeah, let me respond because I actually misunderstood too. They didn't actually vote. So, I was going to talk about this in my report, but we might as well touch on it now. So I presented at the July 3rd meeting, the recommendation from the Library Board of Trustees to eliminate fines. I presented basically a similar report to what I shared with you all here. And it was captured very well in July 6th edition of the Daily Journal by the journalist who was there. They seemed amenable to it. Yes, sorry, January 6th. They seemed amenable to it. And I got the sense that there is strong support, but they didn't take an official vote. And this is where I think that Liz or any other trustee, you could be helpful if you wanted to follow up with them to find out what their timetable is, because I was not given one. That said, the library is not currently charging fines or fees because we remain under under a state of emergency because of the continuation of the COVID pandemic. And one of the things that I presented, just like other agencies or other government agencies, we have kept fines eliminated, or not eliminated, but paused during the pandemic, because we just think is our small way of helping people to avoid any additional stress. And the good news is that this nearly 2 years has allowed us to observe. And we have had fines paused since early in the pandemic. And the patrons of San Mateo have behaved the same. By and large, they still have been returning everything. There's been no noticeable upticks in things being extremely late. So basically, elimination of fines is supported by their behavior, and it's a great reward to the trust, their trustworthiness. Also, right now, during the pandemic, I would say there's been about 3 PLS libraries, South San Francisco, Menlo Park, one other, that have eliminated fines officially. And right now, we are the only library, along with Daly City. San Bruno did it recently too. We are the only library, along with Daly City, that has not officially eliminated fines. So, you never want to get ahead of yourself. But I think the support is strong. I just don't know when they are actually going to take the official vote.
I appreciate you clarifying that, because it wasn't clear at the meeting. There wasn't.
No, it was not.
Yeah.
And I actually stated afterwards that it had been approved, and someone on the city's executive team, I think it was our city attorney, he said, actually, it's not been voted on yet.
No,
So,
it was kind of strange. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm happy to follow up to see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Great. Thanks, Marcia. Sorry to interrupt.
You're welcome, no problem. And just to let you know, if and when it is approved, the fee schedule can be changed anytime throughout the year. So there is a process where all departments update their fee schedules, and it's at this time. At the end, towards the end of the year, a calendar year, and beginning of the new year. But there is a chance to update it. So if it is approved, if and when it is approved, we can go ahead and change it.
Great, thank you. Trustee Diaz-Nash has a question. Oh, you're muted. Yes.
Sorry about that. Clarifying question. Are any of the changes to these fees just a CPI increase, or are there any that are increased or decreased outside of that boundary? Thank you.
Yes, that's a good question. The passport fees. So we also here have our community meeting rooms. So these are increased based on the CPI. And then following the community meeting rooms this year, and that doesn't happen every year, we have the passport fees. So down here, item G. So all of these fees increased this year, and they are all above CPI, but they are increased by the State Department. So it's completely out of our control. So those are the only fees that are outside of the CPI.
And thank you very much. If I could request, when we do this again next year or the next time, if you could just highlight any fees that are raised or lowered outside of the CPI, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. And then, so the other fees also do not increase, the research service. So basically all the library services do not increase, except the community meeting rooms and passport services when the State Department makes any changes. Any other questions?
You're muted.
Yeah,
Muted.
I don't think anyone has their hands up. Yeah. Thank you, Marcia.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Marcia.
You're welcome.
Great. Well, I'm happy we're just moving right along.
Amazing.
Yeah. So we're on to reports and announcements. So James, would you like to go first?
Sure, and I'm glad we have moved along smoothly. I think I got a pretty somewhat long city librarians report. It's been a while since we met, but I will move swiftly. And at some point, I'll show you a part of my screen. So the first thing is, I was going to talk about the fine elimination, and we kind of covered that. The only thing I would add is the article was written by Curtis Driscoll, and it was in the January 6th edition of the Daily Journal, and it sums up the nature of the meeting and the information I presented it was a special meeting. It was not closed. And it sums it up very well. And this journalist also actually did a little bit of research of his own. So just want to highlight that and to say thank you all. And that I really think that we have a strong chance of eliminating fines at San Mateo. And one of the good things about that presentation was there were some citizens who watched it. And one person said that at the beginning of the presentation, he was skeptical about fine elimination, and that there were some things that I addressed that helped put him at ease. And one of the things was he was concerned about people just taking advantage of it and returning items late, and then there not being a lot of things available that normally would be. And so, I addressed that by basically saying, we have not seen any changes. And as a response to eliminating fines, one of the things that you all as a group will work with me on is how we may want to adjust our policy. Because we may want to say, because there is no fine, we may want to say that we shorten the grace period for people who have items late. But to be honest with you, and I'm not naive, I really think that the patrons of the San Mateo Public Library and the populace of our community, I really don't anticipate a lot of problems with this. And I think in general, what it has says is that throughout the years, library lovers tend to return their stuff, if not on time, around on time. And that the fines didn't necessarily make them do that. It may have done that for some people, but the majority of people, I think this experiment suggests that it was not necessarily making people return things on time as much as it was the fact that people appreciate it and they thought about their neighbors. So that's a bit of encouragement. The next thing I would like to talk about is staffing and hours. So like Delta, Omicron has slowed down library activity a bit over the past several weeks, but still pretty active in the daytime. Our current hours at Main seem to be still meeting the public need very well. We close Monday through Thursday, we're closing at 7. And most evenings, things die down pretty substantially around 6 or as it gets dark. We're open about 6 hours a day at the branches, closing at 5 or 6. The supervisor reports that they seem to be meeting demand very well, but she has heard feedback that opening at 10 a.m., which was the pre-pandemic hours at the branches, or 11 on Friday and Saturday would be welcomed by some patrons. Right now, the hours are reduced substantially on Fridays and Saturdays, where we open at noon on Fridays and 1 on Saturdays. So very limited hours at the branches on Fridays and Saturdays, 5 hours of activity on Fridays, 4 hours on Saturday. So we would really like to expand the branch hours first. But we are also dealing with some staffing shortages, particularly at the branches, and that's what makes it hard for us to do immediate expansion. And I've basically said, I want our brand supervisor to provide me with the analysis of what we need to expand those hours, but I pretty much know it's going to come down to filling some positions left open by recent retirements, as well as we kept double-digit positions unfilled at the city manager's direction to help save money during the pandemic. He has recently given us the green light, but it will still take several months to fill what I think at last check was about 17 open positions. Recruiting talent for part-time positions right now is quite challenging. We are doing a departmental position chart to see what our options are, because we're thinking about the potential of recombining some positions, creating other positions that may make them more attractive if perhaps we can turn a 19-hour position to a 30-hour position. That may make it more attractive because everyone's fighting for talent right now, and good for those people looking for jobs. And we want to make it as attractive as possible to the people that we would like to add to our team and help us to expand our hours specifically at the branches. Before I move on to the next item, are there any questions about anything I've said so far?
Lynn has a question.
Okay.
Hi, I'm sorry I've been off. It's been hard to hear people, so I apologize, and I hope this comes through. James, I just wanted to ask, are you approved to hire for all 17 positions?
Yes, now we are.
That's
Literally,
great news.
Yeah, literally Drew told me last week, he said, you have the green light, go forth. I'm very proud
How
of-
many full FTE is that? What's the total?
Lynn, I'd have to get you the exact number on that later. But
Okay.
what I can tell you is that most of those positions are per diem. And
Okay.
a couple of them are merit, part-time merit. But we know that the positions would be more attractive to more people if we made them merit. And for the new people to make that plain, per diem was pretty much unbenefited positions. And obviously, if you're a retiree or a young person just starting off, that may work for you. But for people looking for longer term opportunities, they would like a position with benefits. Obviously, the city wants to manage that well because benefited positions are more expensive. So, but we're in a cost neutral situation. So Ruxana and I, that's the deputy city librarian, have been talking about is if there are ways that we could combine some of these positions and present them in a cost neutral way to say we have maybe fewer positions, but they have more hours and better benefits, and the budgetary impact is the same. That's what we would like to do. And maybe if we have people with more hours and better benefits, we could use them more versatilely, and they have more skin in the game because they know that we have more skin in the game with them. So that's what we're hoping for. Endeavoring to do, I should say.
And Trustee Diaz-Nash?
Well, Head Librarian Moore, I totally support that way of going about things. My question about the positions, were there any of the per diem that were focused on off hours or getting Mateo out into the community? Because I know that has been one of your greatest challenges, having the van, but not the staff.
That's a great question. And so let me tell you what's going on with that. First of all, like you said, we had the van, but not the staff. And we kind of, at that point, had the staff. We didn't have the money to give, to pay some of the staff for the extra coverage that was needed, either to send them out on the van or to have them cover the desk while we sent merit staff out. One of the wonderful things that happened last year was that the Library Foundation made its funding need a commitment to funding the expansion of outreach. So they raised $70,000 for us to pay people to be able to provide coverage so we could free people up and send them out into the community. Of course, COVID continued. Of course, we continue to deal with the staffing shortage, but we've had a couple positive developments in that direction, and I'm very, very encouraged. The first thing is we finally hired a branch supervisor, and that's a long-term branch staffer, marina staff person and librarian, former teacher herself, Aisha Washington. She's now the branch supervisor. And when we rewrote that position to say, you're not just gonna manage the branches, you are going to be the lead on outreach. And we thought that was particularly appropriate because of where the branches are. So we felt that she would have a lot of insight into where to go, who to speak with, and who to connect with as far as getting services out to those communities that are underserved on the, I guess, east of the freeway. The great news is that Aisha has embraced it. She's very analytical as well as being warm and personable, and she's enthusiastically on board. So we got the resources. Now we got to get the people hired, and she's creating a framework. She's working on a full year calendar of outreach dates. And she knows very, very well that we want some regular dates. We want some regular commitments where we can show up at farmers markets, et cetera. And we know that at least for this year, we are well funded to do it. And then the idea is, as we look at our structural and hiring framework, is to continue it. And so the foundation gave us a good head start, a good lead off. They responded to our need. And then now we just have to get the people hired so that we can free up the people on our team who are already enthusiastic about wanting to get out there. So it is going to probably take us a while, several months to hire all these people. But I do believe that we're going in the right direction. The money has not been spent, and it is there for whenever the world opens up and we have all the things in place. And Aisha has really, really embraced her role as the lead of outreach. So let me know if that doesn't answer all your questions, or if you would like for me to elaborate a little bit more.
Great. Anything else, Lisa? Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm curious if the library currently uses volunteers, or if there's a restriction around that, or if that is a possible route, at least as a short-term staffing solution.
That is a very good point. And, you know, we've looked at a number of things. We've looked at ways in which we could pair volunteers up. We've looked at ways in which we could pair even some volunteers up from the foundation. And we have had some foundation members go out and do outreach. The volunteer situation is also a victim of our staff. So Marcia, our wonderful senior management analyst, was our community services or volunteer coordinator before this. And so she's kind of doing double duty. So one of the things, you have begun the recruitment for your replacement as volunteer coordinator. I think that was pretty recent. Am I right about that? Okay.
Yes, that's correct. So we paused the volunteer service during the closure. And as we started bringing staff back, it was determined that we would bring staff back first and see how our staff was dealing with, if everybody is healthy, then we'll slowly start bringing back volunteers. So as far as our on-site volunteers, I've been bringing them back slowly. I've brought back the Friends of the Library group. So they've been back for a few months now. So since September, it started with the Amazon sales group. So they're a part of the Friends of the Library. And then we started bringing back the ones who actually do the sorting and also filling the bookstore. So we started with those. We have some computer aides. So I'm slowly bringing them back. And they're everybody's doing really well, and everybody's been healthy. So I foresee, from now on, we'll just keep bringing more and more volunteers back, and hopefully soon we'll have a new person in that position too, as the volunteer coordinator.
Thank you, Marcia. Let me add something else, Austin, because that's a very good question. Library board members can volunteer too. To join in the outreach is fun. I wish I could do it more like I used to. I have a different role, but it is a lot of fun. The other thing is we have a lot of long-term volunteers, and they sort of have their areas that they are wedded to because they've been doing it a long time. And sometimes they're sort of not interested in trying some of these other things, which is one reason why it's good to bring in new volunteers and constantly be recruiting so that we can balance that out. So if I were to think about our current long-term volunteers, I think many of them might not be as interested in outreach as they are in doing what they're doing because they've been doing it for a long time. So one of the things we may have to look at is whether or not we bring in new volunteers specifically for this. But I think that's a very good question. And I think we have not tapped fully into those options, and fully into that possibility. Some of it is just, circumstances, but that is definitely something for us to keep in mind for sure.
No, that makes sense. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Getting that, James. And I also just to add that throughout the pandemic, a lot of our volunteers were willing to continue their assignments online. So we've continued with a lot of programs virtually via Zoom. Project Read, we have tutors helping their students still. We also have Girls Who Code that is mainly coding, so everybody's participating via Zoom. So many other programs continued virtually during the pandemic.
Great.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I'm going to move along to the next thing, which is a pretty big item. It's the Marina branch structural issues. So to provide a little context to Shaylana and Austin, Marina branches, both of our branches are about 50, 60 years old. Marina branches probably has the most beautiful location, but because of that location, there's been some shifting of the foundation. And if you go in there, it has what's the word? A not unsubstantial sloping of the floor. And it is very noticeable, and it's definitely made some people uncomfortable, especially our staff who are concerned about patron safety. It's not like this steep slope, but if you're already steady and unbalanced, say if you're a senior or something, it could be concerning.
Mm-hmm.
Several years back, we had a structural review done. Basically, what the agency that Public Works hired said was, yeah, you're going to need to do something about this. You're going to need to replace this building or do something, but it is structurally sound for now. We think it's because of the shifting. Well, we've got verifications because of the shifting. It's on the marina, and that it's believed to be because of the shifting ground underneath it because it's wet.
Mm.
So in response to that, I learned about, late last year, I learned about a grant. Well, first of all, in response to that, let me say this. Board President Elizabeth DeWinter got this onto the radar of our city council, and thank you for that, by getting Councilwoman Diane Pappin to join her in person to come and take a look at the Marina branch. That led to it becoming a priority for our city. So here's where we are now. Back in November, we submitted a preliminary documentation to evaluate our eligibility for a grant from the Building Forward Library Infrastructure Grant Program. We are still waiting on them to make the official grant application available, and we're told that it will be available late January or early February. And initially they had said that it would be open throughout February until the end of February, but they are having some trouble getting their things, getting their stuff together too. So we're waiting, we're checking every week. Now, here's what the Building Forward Library Infrastructure Grant Program is about. It is made possible by the California Budget Act for the 21-22 fiscal year, and it contains $439 million in one-time funds to create an equity-focused matching infrastructure grant program to support library maintenance, capital projects, broadband and technology upgrades, and purchasing of devices. This is their priorities, and this is their sort of frame, their guidelines. It shall prioritize projects submitted for local libraries in high poverty areas of the state. No grant amount should exceed $10 million. Grants shall prioritize life safety and other critical maintenance and infrastructure projects, which made me think we fit those descriptions in Marina, and may support more significant modernization and construction capital projects, other infrastructure projects, and device purchases only if funding remains after supporting life safety and other critical projects. We certainly think that Marina falls under life safety and critical projects. The limitation on us is that they'll match funds up to $10 million. Our city is not positioned, from what I understand, to spend that much. And if you spend that much, we should have a new branch. But I'll tell you the options that I've been presented with after some analysis with the head of Public Works. Option one is approximately $2.3 million expense. And it would be a quote unquote short-term resupport of the building that is supposed to last for 10 years. And that is the cheaper option. Option two is about a $4.5 million option, which is considered long-term or 20-year deep foundation restructuring. And it would involve the entire building foundation would be resupported on new foundations. So you got one option for 2.3 million, 10-year, adds 10 years of life to Marina. Another option adds about 20 years of life to Marina for 4.5 million. The city does not want to build a new library right now. I think the feeling is that it's not within the budget boundaries that they must work within. But if we spend $4.5 million, the city will have to come up with 2.225. If we spend $2.3 million, the city will have to come up with 1.15. So those are the options I'm being presented with. And then there's a third option. As some of you know, the city is in discussion with a developer for the possibility of developing some land by the Marina Library, currently where the Fish Market restaurant is. And my understanding is that is very, very early in the process, but my understanding is that that the developer is quite open to hearing about a potential collaboration. And why would they not be? Libraries, especially if you're building housing, libraries anchor communities and make housing worth more and more attractive. I have no idea if that is going to come to fruition. It's very early on, but the way it is looked at now is that depending on the timeline, if something like that were to happen, instead of rebuilding the foundation of Marina, it could be a situation where the developer agrees to invest in a new library and Marina could temporarily be moved to a location nearby in that small shopping mall across the street. And potentially a new library could be built as part of a new housing development. And I've seen that work very successfully. So I know that was a lot of information. So just let me know if you're like, we got it, or if you're like, please clarify.
I thought that was very well explained. Lynn?
Okay.
Unmuting. There we go. It's fascinating. And so James, I'm curious, is the grant money available regardless of the city's budget? I mean, how will you know if you qualify for the grant, how much money you're going to get from the state? And also, is there grant money available if you have a developer?
So the parameters of the grant money is basically what a municipality is willing to match up to $10 million. So it definitely depends on what the city is willing to match. If you can't get the grant without some substantial skin in the game. And the developer situation is totally separate. And my guess is just that, my understanding, I just don't want to say too much because nothing is formalized and it's just very early in the discussion. But, just in my conversations with the city manager, we know the developer has shown some genuine interest because it is a win-win for them. I worked in a library in Portland that was underneath a condo. And there was coffee shop nearby, bakery, all part. And then the condo residents could come down to the library and it was beautiful. It was very well done. And it was definitely a selling point. So the only thing I heard is, that there could be some discussion going on about what if the developer had an opportunity to include where Marina is as part of a development in exchange for contributing to or investing in a library that could be a part of whatever their big picture plans are for that area, whether it is a large family. I know it is family housing. And so obviously they might be interested in having a very nice brand new public library as a part of their development, which I'm guessing will probably also have some commercial entities too. But very early in the conversation, I would hate for anyone to take away from this that those plans are anywhere near being set in stone. Does that answer your question, Lynn? And if not, let me know. Okay. So one last thing, because this is a long report, sorry. So I wanted to share with you all something I'm very, very proud of, and I'm very, very proud of our staff person. I'll show you some pictures after this. But each month, so I want to talk about Jordan Bomber. She's one of our relatively new children's librarian, wonderful young woman from Chicago. Each month, the Children's Department offers a service-oriented program for grades 1 through 3, and it's called Maker Wednesdays, Pay It Forward. This program explores different ways kids can uplift and give back to their environment and their community. Jordan initiated this program. In January, she launched the first session where they created hand-drawn mini portraits of African-American heroes, bundled with an exciting fact about the hero's life. These artistic creations were placed inside the pockets of a DIY Advent calendar that was donated to the San Mateo Senior Center. Seniors will be able to uncover a different African-American hero each month during Black History Month in February and enjoy, in her words, the delightfully adorable artwork of our littlest library members. Jordan is now working to start a pen pal program between the kids and the seniors, and it's in the early stages, and she's still evaluating it. So this hits on multiple things in our work plan. It is diversity, equity, inclusion, not just from a cultural standpoint, but from an age standpoint. It is connecting young people to seniors. It is treating African-American history in a way that says that it is a part of American history, and allowing these kids to learn something about it, as well as the seniors. And as I told Jordan the other day, I was thinking about my 4th grade teacher, and I know Jordan is not a teacher, but these are the sort of things that some of our littlest members will remember one day, I think. So I'm going to end this, and I just want to show you all a couple of the images from their work. And so that is a drawing. Can you see it?
No,
Okay, let's see what's going on here. Share, boom.
there you go.
All right, so the kids made these little pouches, each for one day of Black History Month. And this is an image of an African-American hero. This is Jordan holding the whole calendar that is going to be sent to the Senior Center. And each one of those days has a little factoid about, and a drawing about an African-American hero for Black History Month. And this is just another close-up. And I kid you not when I say, this is why I am here. This is the most important thing, things like this. So I just wanted to share that. And I'm sorry I took so long.
No.
But thank you all for your patience.
Thank you. I love that. I have to say that one drawing is better than any drawing I can do. Very impressed. Thank you, James.
You're welcome.
Did anyone have any questions or comments for James?
Please thank Jordan for us.
Will do, for sure.
At some point, it would be, that type of thing would be a wonderful thing to bring to the board. You know,
Well,
it's wonderful, but eventually to hear from her too.
You know something, Lisa, one of the things that's been on my mind is that I realized we haven't had staff visiting in a while, and probably since the pandemic started. And so that is a priority for me. They can tell the story much better than I can. And so I'm going to have some staff come this year and showcase, at least on a quarterly basis, some things that they're working on to show you all what they're up to, what we're up to. Thank you.
That would be wonderful.
Trustee Lynn Harris?
Yeah, I just want to say really quickly, James, thanks for that very, very comprehensive report touching on a number of critical items. And I had the opportunity to meet Jordan about, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 months ago, or probably longer, time flies. I was in there just kind of walking around and getting a sense of what was going on in the library. And I just happened to speak with her. She was at her station there, and just a delightful, eager, enthusiastic, passionate young lady. It was very a delightful conversation, and she's obviously, as witnessed by this in very tangible sense, a tremendous representative of the library. Just fantastic. So congrats and kudos and every other thing possible to her and to you, James. So thanks.
Thank you. All those things are true. They say, you know, don't tell people how to do stuff. You give them an overarching goal of your vision, and then you let creative people do what they do. And so that's exactly what she did. So I'm so impressed by her, and I'll share the kind words. Thank you all.
Excellent. Why don't we move on to Lynn, your report from the foundation?
Thank you. It's nice to see you all. Happy New Year, because it's been several months since I've had the honor and pleasure of seeing you all on Zoom. Shalona and Austin, welcome aboard. I look forward to coming along with you with all of the various wonderful things that the Library Board of Trustees helps make the San Mateo Public Library great. So for your information, if you haven't met me before, I'm the Executive Director for the San Mateo Public Library Foundation. So I am the fundraising wing with my board of directors. And apropos, we have good news. We've just wrapped up our fall appeal, and the board met last week and voted to cut a $100,000 check for our first of 2 perhaps biannual grants this year. And it's an important moment for us because we have a very, very conservative budget this year. As you may or may not recall, we will not be holding a gala this spring, and instead we'll be doing some strategic planning and shifting our fundraising plans to more of a direct ask. And I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. And then I'm going to take this a little bit out of the way I had it written down here, but one of the other things that the foundation is going to be addressing this spring is a transition in leadership. In November last year, I gave my notice that after 4+ years, it'll be 4.5, I'm going to step aside. So we are currently in process on searching for a new leader for the foundation. If you know of somebody who is community minded, loves libraries, and knows how to bring people together in support of them, please, by all means, reach out to your networks and push their names to us, as we would be delighted to speak with them. Spring fundraising plans for the spring, which is when you would hold spring fundraising, sorry for the repetition. We are pinning our message to National Library Week, which is typically the first or second week in April. It's from the 3rd to the 9th this year. And we're going to kind of join hands with the library, which hasn't had the opportunity to throw a party for itself in several years here, and use this as a way to tell our donors and potential supporters about all the wonderful things that they can find here at San Mateo Public Library. We will be bringing back our annual youth poetry contest, which we initiated last year in association with the virtual gala. We're hoping that this whole pandemic situation calms down enough so that people are actually in the library for a lot of these celebrations. And what else do I want to tell you about National Library Week? It may come to me in a bit. We will be drafting a early and short library link as a guide to this. So anyway, I will have more information for you. And as always, we welcome the support of the trustees in our efforts, and we hope you will attend and be our cheerleaders as well. We were also getting ready at some point, hopefully in February, to call a special meeting of the foundation board to engage in some strategic planning, try and figure out what the next phase looks like for the foundation in support of the library. And of course, we will be using your expertise and James's and his staff to help align our missions and make sure that this public library has the most support it can get from its community at all time. Lastly, we have some very exciting news at this last meeting. We were asked by the African American Library Advisory Committee to engage with them and collaborate in support of a big event that they're planning for October. They've engaged Jelani Cobb, who is a prominent educator and writer, to come and visit our neighborhood, basically, and give a speaking engagement. And they want to use this opportunity to raise some money to put into their trust fund at the library to engage additional programming. And we have done these kinds of collaborations with them in the past, but it's been over 5 years since the last one. And so it took a little time for us to reestablish what the relationship would look like. But the board is enthusiastically going forward with this, and we're really thrilled to be working with this group. And I think it's going to be a really exciting event. And I did remember what I wanted to tell you about National Library Week. One of the other things that we've had going on, you may be aware, is we were raising money for the Legacy Fund, which is the endowment that we have seeded. And we are anticipating an unveiling ceremony. It was originally thought we might hold it sometime in February, along with our Leadership Circle appreciation event. But given the circumstances with Omicron, and I think we will eventually be able to hold in-person events at some point, but we didn't want to plan on having to cancel something and tell people to go away. We will likely organize some kind of an unveiling ceremony at the library during National Library Week, when we can maybe tag team off of some other event that people can stick around for. So stay tuned, and we will be happy to be adding to the decor and the lobby of about 100 names of people who have donated and support the library's future and its perpetual support here in the community. I think that's all I have. So if you have any questions, let me know.
I believe Trustee Diaz-Nash may have a question.
I would just like to say that both Head Librarian Moore and Executive Director Esselstein's reports were amazing tonight. It's so full of great news and opportunities. But I'm so excited for you, Lynn, but I'm so sad because so enjoyed working with you on the board and the foundation, and look forward to whatever comes next. And I know you will not go far away, and we'll all have an opportunity to really celebrate when the time comes near. But congratulations.
Thank you, Lisa. It's very nice of you. I am a local. This is my library.
I just want to echo, I mean, the job that you've done, and is just amazing in the 4 years. I couldn't remember how many years you've been in this position, but the contribution that you have made has literally amounted to a lot of money for the library. So I know I can speak for all of us and say how grateful we are for your service, and we know you won't be a stranger. So it's not a sad time, but we know we'll see you. So, but sad for the foundation, sad for the library. But
very kind of
but
you.
anyway, thank you so much for everything.
My pleasure. It's been a delight.
Great. So at this point, usually each trustee will go around and talk. Oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Lynn Harris. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. For Lynn, because the unveiling of the legacy plaque, if you will, is being postponed, does that mean there's additional time for one to add his or her support to the fund and get on the plaque?
If you know the right people, I might be able to make that happen for you. As a matter of fact, it's kind of an interesting thing. We are in the design process with the sign maker, and they are late, and it's because of COVID. They simply have been impacted staff-wise. So we have not received the first designs. I have 1 or 2 revisions max. I already know of one person that got added. And so, yes, there is a very limited time. If you're interested, it's a $500 minimum donation. Contact me right away.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll give my quick report. I attended the Library Foundation board meeting last week, which was wonderful. Just to hear about the programming, and I also attended one of my favorite things to attend are the biotech lectures, and there was an interesting one about smell of all things, but it was very interesting. So if you haven't looked up the biotech series, it's still all on Zoom. You might want to just pay attention. Michelle Baute, did I get her name right? She does she does an excellent job scheduling. I think she cold calls people that she's interested in, and then they speak, and it's just fascinating. So anyway, that's one of the great things about our library is a biotech program. James, you had mentioned moving forward, possibly having staff come in and talk about what they do. And I thought it'd be great for future meetings to bring Aisha in to talk about the outreach that she's planning to do, where she's thinking of doing it. Also, it'd be great to, I can't remember the staff member's name who's running the lending program, but it'd be fun at some point as we approach the spring to have him come in and talk about all the various things that we will be lending as part of the program. And then I just wanted to follow up, James. One of the things you mentioned at a prior meeting was possibly having Ryan Dowd, the homelessness and mental health expert, come in and talk to the staff. And I was just curious, I'm sure with COVID that's been impacted, but if you were still trying to arrange that.
It is arranged, but it's going to be virtual. And it was always going to be virtual just because of the pandemic. And he's in pretty high demand, so it was cheaper to have him virtually. And for those of, just to inform people, Ryan Dowd he runs a homeless, a very, very respected shelter for persons experiencing homelessness outside of Chicago. And he's just very, very insightful on the things impacting their lives and the strategies and tools for those of us in the public sector to provide good service. So it is open to all city employees as well as all PLS employees, and proud of myself, I wrote a little grant to get them to come. But I think that I will check and see. I'm pretty sure if anyone here is interested, probably could make it so that you could attend if you want.
I'd be interested, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Lynn Harris?
Certainly, just two quick things, neither of which is something I attended. Shame on me. I was amazed when City Librarian Moore mentioned that we have, perhaps I should have known this, you said about 1 million items in our collection. That's beyond what I had imagined. So that's obviously the library is a civic treasure, and that shows the depth and reach. My other question is, in October, late October, I attended a city. It was just kind of a gathering for persons on the city boards and commissions. And we each had to give a little talk for 30 seconds or what it was on our commission. Well, after I was finished, Rich Hedges came up to me and mentioned that Measure S had some money for the library. And he said, it's not a lot, so he qualified it. But he said, please, follow through or whatever he said. He goes, but there is some money in Measure S funds for the library. So I had read, I thought that was the case, but it wasn't. But anyway, if that's a possibility, it'd be great. That's all I have.
Before Lisa speaks, because I think she could clarify the Measure S thing, let me just give you one clarification on our collection. We have about 250,000 physical items, about 250,000, 250,000 physical items. But when you factor in the number of items that we offer electronically, we are over 1 million.
No, you were clear in that. I just went with the bigger number for the dramatic effect. Thank you very much, Jake.
Sorry. Okay.
Trustee Diaz-Nash?
Yeah, in terms of Measure S, I'm on the Measure S committee, and there is money based on the tax to fund library staff. It was originally during the last recession to keep the library open on Sundays, but that money is now being used to support different types of staff. And James is involved in that in the budget process. But what James does every year, if we have excess, is to come and make a presentation along with other department heads as to where that excess could be used. And so James has fought eloquently and loud and long on behalf of the library on many occasions. James, would you like to add anything?
Sure, thank you. That's very kind. Well, Rod, we appreciate anything that they have to offer us. The last time the emphasis, when we came, it was very clear the emphasis was on safety and infrastructure, and that's where the bulk of the funds went. And that's understandable because I believe the people who really initiated this, that was their main focus. So we were able to get, I guess you could say, a nominal amount. I think it's about $10,000, which was very helpful, which we used to as furniture for furniture replacement, et cetera, things like that. So as far as Measure S goes, my understanding is the main focus is, as usual, safety, infrastructure, et cetera. And so we totally respect that, but whatever we can get, we will accept. And I must throw the compliment back at Lisa because she was the person that advocated as strongly as possible for our interests. And were it not for her, we may not have even gotten a portion of it. So much appreciation.
Great, that's a nice segue for your talk, Trustee Diaz now.
So I guess the note for all of us is Measure S comes to us because of sales tax. So everybody please go down and buy things in San Mateo, physical things that get taxed because that increases Measure S. So there's my pitch to go shopping in San Mateo. But a couple things. Number one, I wanted to make everybody aware on this Saturday from 9 to about noon, and it's on the City of San Mateo website, the public meetings. The City Council is having its yearly strategic goal review session, the Blue Sky session, where they talk about, above and beyond what's happening every day in the budget, what would they like to see? And it's an opportunity for all the council members to get their big visions, their pet projects in, but it's also an opportunity for the public to come and talk. And one of the items that has been suggested is the reconstitution of the Marina branch. So I was very happy to see that. So anyone who's got time on Saturday morning, it's on Zoom, you can find it on the public meetings portion of the City of San Mateo website. Please come, or if you can't come, make public comment via email. There's a group email you can send and just endorse the fact that we need to fix Marina, because President DeWinter did an amazing job to get it on the radar of everyone after such a long time. But we all have to continue to keep the pressure up. So that's my request of everybody on this Zoom, to just send an email, show up, whatever you can do. And then for future topics, as it works in, I'm really interested in continuing the discussion that we had last time when James was talking about one of his goals was really to expand who finds the career of being librarians an appealing career, and particularly looking at a more diverse population, people of color, people from outside of this area. I think there's a lot that we can do to support James in his effort in our own outreach. And then also, and this was something I spoke with Trustee Bowles about before he was officially Trustee Bowles, both of us have a real passion for expanding the library's role. And as whether it's a maker center or a startup center or a music center, but really things that we can support what the library is doing in terms of making it the real heartbeat of the community, not just the living room sofa. So James, wherever you and the staff decide to go, I know I would be very, very interested in supporting that effort, because I think, what Jordan did with the Little Makers was an incredible example of what that can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Bowles, do you have anything you want to report?
Sure. I attended the smell lecture
you?
as well, and it was excellent. It was actually better than I expected. I really like the speaker, Harold McGee, and it was even exceeded my expectations. And then going back a few months, I've attended a few of the Cole Mansion concerts that are held at the library. And I don't know if any of you have attended those as well, but they're really wonderful, especially in the diversity of ages and people who show up. It really does an incredible job of making classical music accessible. And you get little kids and older people. And I mean, it just seems like it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and is really, really wonderful there. With what Trustee Nash was saying, I like similarly, James, I'd love to support the makerspace stuff, whether it's ideas or what. The second idea that's close to my heart is language learning as well. And I've spent a lot of time in language learning myself and language teaching too. And I feel like that's potentially a place for diversity as well, because we have so many different languages that are spoken in San Mateo. And so if there's, I don't know if there's staff who are interested in that or what that might look like, but something around language exchanges or more language programming would be exciting as well.
That's a great idea.
I agree.
Thank you. Trustee Wheeler, do you have any report you want to make?
Not at this time, but I am interested in the mental health professional development that Mr. Moore mentioned.
What do you,
That's the Ryan
are you
Dow.
talking the Ryan Dow? Okay.
Right.
Yes, I
Yeah.
will certainly follow up with you all before the end of the week on that.
That'd be great.
That reminds me, if I can say one more thing, and that's just that my partner actually works in public psychiatry at the San Mateo County Hospital. So if there's an interest to continue that or work with people closer to home, I'd be happy to help connect or support that in any way as well, because the San Mateo Hospital actually has a pretty strong public psychiatry program here.
Would love to learn more about that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Amazing. Great. Does anyone else have any comments, questions, future agenda item ideas?
Well, one thing I just want to mention is that on our next agenda, I would like to bring Marcia back. They just completed our annual impact report, and that's what we call our annual report, because we like to focus more on telling the story of what our year was like. It was a bit delayed, but you know, Marcia has been doing triple, quadruple duty, and like so many of us, you know, but especially her. But they got the final draft, and I think she'll be ready to present it next month if you all are ready to see it.
Yes,
Absolutely.
please.
Great.
Great. Thank you. Well, that's it. I am pleased to announce we are under, well, no, we're under 2 hours anyway, which is pretty good for us. So.
Congratulations, President DeWinter. Well done.
Oh, thank you. Well, we had a lot to go through, so I think that is good. Yeah. Well, so nice to meet the new trustees and to see you all. And I'm looking forward to the next meeting.
Welcome aboard. Have a good week, everyone.
Thanks to all.
Thank you. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.